Any additions to the agenda, Mr. Rudolph, that we aren't aware of right now? Have a motion to approve the agenda? Oh, the next board member have a thing to add?
Well, possibly, small point of order in the absence of Mr. Bax, do you feel it'd be prudent to nominate a secretary before we approve agenda items?
I don't think for the time that he's gonna be missing is gonna be important. Is it? You wanna?
What do you think, Kelly?
Is there gonna be any need to sign anything before he gets here? I'm not sure how long he's gonna be absent.
And I guess really, again, I know it's not of much consequence with the business at hand this evening.
It was last time.
Right. But would he have the ability in post to sign meetings he wasn't?
It's not a biggie if you wanna have a Secretary Pro Tem to fill in from the beginning. It's probably a good idea.
With that being said, nominate Ms. Wilson as Secretary Pro Tem in Mr. Bax's absence.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? 4-0, Miss.
I don't really catch it when you have time.
Okay.
Right, votes open.
Right on time, sir.
No, we're laughing because we just spent a few minutes not knowing, and would it be prudent to elect a Secretary Pro Tem until you got here, so we haven't got out and just got done voting.
Take me 5 minutes to get here,
Except for,
Do we have to do what we
no,
have?
the motion was in his absence. Set to go. Mr. Rudolph, do we have any visitors? Oh, I didn't get a vote for it on the agenda. Did I?
I move on the agenda.
Second.
Second? Any discussion of the agenda? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? That would be 5-0 on the agenda. Mr. Romanette.
We got it. Electronic.
Now then, Mr. Rudolph, do we have any visitors that have signed up?
Yes, sir. Steve Dimitropoulos, and I think it's regarding millage.
Yes, I'm here. What would you like me to speak, or can I stand right here?
You're talking to the board.
Good. Steve Dimitropoulos from Pascagoula, kind of speaking for myself, and there's others that I think feel this way, so speaking on behalf of others, I wanted to speak to the millage increase, and but before that, I want to just preface it by saying, you know, as a board in understanding your governance, you have to understand who's your duty, who you're responsible to. And y'all are in a little bit difficult position because you have a duty to the school system, the district, but you also, I would argue, have a duty to the community because you're able to apply millage. And of course, with that, people are taxed. And so the community is affected at large, not just out inside the school district. And so, I'm all in favor of supporting and having millage for what I call essentials, teacher salaries, buildings, equipment, labs, computers, things of that nature. But I'm not in favor of being taxed for non-essentials. That things like turf on football fields and performing arts centers. I would think a better way to do that would be pay as you go, or find a way to save your money and allocate it going forward to do it, as opposed to taxing people. And here's the reason, because I think you create a barrier. We already have very high insurance costs here. And if we keep running our taxes up, it's gonna be a barrier for young families coming in here. And it'll be self-defeating. Pretty soon you'll get where there won't be new kids coming to use our facilities that we have. So what I would make an argument for is that raising the millage and not considering the community effect of it, or not kind of understanding that fully and the impact that it has, I think it's a detriment or a deterrent to people actually moving in here. I mean, you don't have to drive down Washington Street and see 200 empty lots between the beach and Washington Street, and no new houses starts in our areas. It may be in Gautier, but not in Pascagoula. You'll see one or two here and there. And so, you know, I know you're already pretty far down the way, and I just read this in the paper, and I thought I'd just come to speak to it. Having a way to walk back your millage at some time and start working together to kind of reduce our taxes. Y'all have a responsibility with that. And here's the problem with the process is that there's no, accountability is probably not the best word, but there's no way to give you feedback. There's not a referendum that we can call for. You're appointed, you're not elected. And so there's no way to kind of to allow for people to say, look, we're just totally opposed to that. We don't want you to do it. And so it is a process, and you're operating under the process, but it's not a process that allows for a lot of feedback. And so this is my only opportunity to do it. And we all live in this community too, and y'all share in the taxes and you share in all that. And we don't have a lot right here compared to some other cities down the coast. And so our only chance of attracting people is not to have as high a cost of living here for starting houses or for buying your first house. And so I just ask you to really take that into consideration. I just, before we start kind of building new things, think about, is there another way that we can do it? Can we fund it out of Chevron money? Can we fund it out of another source? Can we save our money and look to do it in the future and not have to put a tax in place? So,
Appreciate your concern. As you say, we live here.
Sure.
We get afflicted with our same transgressions.
right,
Just a little bit of education for you.
Sure.
Okay. Our budget process started in March, April. We had our work sessions to determine what we were going to have on the budget,
right,
in the May, June timeframe. July, we had a public hearing for the budget. That was really where the
right. There should have been an opportunity to
Yes,
do
sir.
that.
Those three things right there, that schedule, that process is where you get a real opportunity. The other,
Did y'all have comments during that? I mean,
Yes, we did.
people talk
Yes,
about
we
it?
did.
Okay,
Yes, we did. I'll say it's unusual which we do, but yes, we did.
okay.
We also posted notice in the paper several times.
Yeah, we had to post the notice 3 weeks,
Okay,
so
sure,
for our budget hearing. The other thing is, we allow a lot of our budget process to be driven from the strategic plan. And, 2012 17 we last did that, right? And had a lot of input from the public there. 250 members that we had volunteered to come on to that process. So we're going to do that. We do that every 5 years,
sure.
and then we run that plan. And
Do people know that if you do something, there's money, they're having to pay for it out of their pocket, whether they have school kids in the school system or not? They understand
there's
there's.
the people that are on that committee were selected, and yes, they know that.
Okay,
Yeah, that's how we do it.
Sure, no.
We don't intentionally go off in the corner.
no, and I understand that, and I'm late to the parade, so, when I saw it in the paper, I just thought, with all the other stuff that's going on now, and, just this, the trajectory of the taxes just really going kind of skyrocketing, and we all kind of sharing in the responsibility of it. It just, I just think we're going down a pathway where we're gonna create more barriers to people living here. Even though we wanna create nice things, but I mean, we're gonna tax ourselves out of the ability of people to live here, certainly young families, certainly people that are in the school system.
Have heard that comment, we heard it from ourselves.
Yeah, sure.
So, we appreciate the public coming in and talking to us.
Real good. Well, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to do it. So,
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other visitors signed up, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're ready for item 2 on the agenda, the consent agenda, sir?
We're grouping several routine items into a single consent agenda. Any board member may request that any or all items on the consent agenda be removed and considered as a separate item. If no such request is made, all items on the consent agenda may be approved by a single action of the Board of Trustees. Consent agenda for September 10th, 2018. Request for approval of board meeting minutes, August 13th, 2018. Request for approval of personnel resignations recommendations. Request for approval of docket of claims for August 2018. Request for approval of enrollment of in-district student whose parent is an employee. Request for enrollment of out-of-district student whose parent is an employee. Request for approval of revised calendar for 2018-19 school year. Request to accept donations and grants. Request for approval of use of facility. Request for approval to advertise for proposals of database software system to track English learners' academic progress and assist with required language service plans. Request for approval of removal of equipment from inventory and disposal. Request for approval to reject all proposals to provide English language acquisition software for kindergarten through 12th grade and to re-advertise. Request for approval of revision of policy IHS graduation requirements. Request for approval of construction change directives. Request for approval of application of certificate of payments. Request for approval of summer stipends. Request for approval of 2018-19 expedited supplements. Request for approval of 2018-19 athletic supplements. Request for approval of affiliation agreement between River Chase Village, Pascagoula-Gautier School District. Special education contract for services with Angela Gay Campbell. Special education contract for services with Chamberlain Counseling Service LLC. Special education contract for services with IEP Deaf Center. Special education contract for services with Dr. Christy Mung. Special education contract for services with Nancy Sherman, highly qualified visual impairment specialist. Special education contract for services with MSU TK Martin. Special Education Department's cooperative agreement between Pascagoula-Gautier School District and Jackson County Civic Action Committee Incorporated. Request for an overnight field trip, JHS Choir USM. Request for an overnight field trip, JHS Band. Request for approval of overnight field trip, JHS NBA State Band Clinic. Request for approval of overnight field trip, GMS Band. Request for approval of overnight field trip, PHS Exchange Program. Request for approval of overnight field trip, PHS Debate Team Saints Classic. Request for approval of overnight field trip, PHS Debate Team USA Tournament. Request for approval of overnight field trip, CCTI Project Lead the Way. Request for approval of overnight field trip, CCTI STEM. It is recommended that all these items on the consent agenda for September 10th, 2018 be approved.
Any board member wish to vote separately on any one of those 30-some odd items?
Like to pull out item N, request for approval of construction change directives, just to have some discussion on that.
Separate vote.
Separate.
Let you catch up. Yeah.
Just a second.
Any objection to moving that one out? We can discuss it separately.
Just as a matter of order, I think anyone can pull it with or without objection, so.
With that, I'll take a motion to approve all items except item N.
So moved. Second.
discussion on any of the items that are left there?
I had a couple.
Okay.
On this, item, let's see, I'm sorry, flipping back and forth. I think there was a software issue. Did this have anything to do with what I read in the paper about the state? I guess this was more of a English language learner. I think the state issues were with another software program where they had to cancel something.
That was a SPED software that the state was going to purchase. This is Dr. Catching's English language acquisition thing, and he had a timeline issue because of the storm.
We were supposed to accept bids until 1 o'clock on the 5th, and did evaluate and open, and we were closed due to Gordon, so we were not able to allow for any last minute submissions, and we were not able to open them and review them as the bid had advertised, and I didn't want to take any chances on not following the timelines that the bids were at, and we will re-advertise for it tomorrow, if the board so chooses.
And that's another item, right? So we're advertising for the same thing?
Yeah, it's the same, it'll go just so we can stay within the time.
Repeat, recycle,
Yes, sir.
reboot, whatever you want to call it.
The other question I had, thank you, the other question I had was, there are a lot of special ed contracts. I don't remember this many last year. Is this a standard, or are there special issues going on in special ed?
Yeah, we do, these contracts go with the RFPs, and usually we do the contract or we sign the interagency agreement, and they were just placed all on the board at one time.
So there's
You
no
don't have to.
new requirements or no,
You aren't required to put the contract on the board. Back in the day, they've changed things, so it's just keeping up with them. We try to, we put them on last year. But like I have new ones this year, like the MSU TK Martin for the assistive technology assessments. They specialize in that. And so we've always performed our own, but they have more certified and more in-depth evaluations per IDEA. So we're just, following the IDEA and following what MDE says. That's actually MDE's contract that they recommend that we use from their special education department.
as I recall, in reading these, there's no fixed amount. Does it all come out of your budget or?
It does.
Okay.
It's 100% funded by IDEA, and it's what they submitted in their RFP. See, back in the day, you did the RFP, you didn't have to do the contract with the RFP. They've changed that. Now they want the RFP and then they want the contracts as well. So all of that is listed in the RFP, and we keep the RFP, and everything is based on whatever they submitted per hour. And then they're tied in for 3 years because I did a multi-year. So next year I won't have to do the RFPs, but I will probably do another contract or resubmit these contracts that say multi-3 years. And of course, we can always opt out, and they can always opt out. But they're locked in for these prices for 3 years. That way I wouldn't have, the RFP doesn't have to be done again until, I think, 2021? But we want to be totally transparent in what we're doing with our IDEA funds. So I'm putting everything on the board. Contracts, anything that goes through my office is going on the board.
Mr. Roberts, we have some members of the community here. Could you give us a few words on the calendar change?
I prefer to let Ms. Damon review that.
Okay?
We're looking at, we had a fall break, we had a professional development day where the students were out, but teachers and employees were still here. And then we had a fall break day on the following Monday where everyone was out. So what we're looking at is taking that fall break day where everyone was out. The professional development day, we already have quite a bit of professional development that we've committed to for that day, so we weren't able to take that. In accountability standards, it says if the governor or the president declare a state of emergency, then we can request to go fewer than 180 days. So we're going to make that request if you approve that tonight. For the second day, if that is denied, then we're going to take the professional development day that we have in March. Kind of a weird day we put in this year because it was a request from secondary. And we're gonna take that day and go to a 60% day because we also have a waiver to do 60% professional development days, do professional development that afternoon. Then we'll have to add an employee day at the end of the calendar. So we're hoping we get the request and we don't have to do that. But, you know, we have to make that request first.
If you don't ask for it, you're not gonna get it.
That's right.
That's right. And it shifts, the starting of the second 9 weeks, it shifts that by 1 day, but, and shifts, exam days, those types of things.
It's always a challenge to keep the seat time
It
in
is,
the right place.
it is.
Appreciate your efforts to figure out how to get those 2 days recovered. Or at least one of them. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Motion's on the floor to accept all items except item N. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? This is here somewhere. You put item N on here, is that item C?
If you refresh, you'll see it, yes, sir.
It's item C.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Refresh is what? F5?
I can see.
See it, see it. Yes, sir, 4C. Was that?
I see the item.
Okay, this doesn't,
Then label it as the C.
it's not, it's just under.
Hold on, let me see if I can fix that, because I have one. Let's try this for you. See if that, now if you refresh again, then maybe that'll help you get it.
That's why I couldn't see it.
They gave me a C, so I didn't know y'all were
I didn't get a C.
refresh.
I did. A C. C.
All right, yes.
Business on that?
Okay, I have it.
First item on here is item 4A, Mr. Donald.
Pascagoula-Gautier School District reviews potential projects. These projects are suggested with roofing projects being the priority. Pascagoula-Gautier administration requests providing projects on a funds available basis. As recommended, board trustees approve the attached list of construction projects. I have to explain the list to the board. Chronologically, it really will probably be out of this budget year that some of these things will be done.
Let's get the item on the agenda on the floor. So I hear a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation. So moved.
A second.
Okay. Now, any discussion? We'll let Mr. Robbins have the floor first.
The board's okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Of course, you know, the board's top priority is to make sure we get our roofs repaired at the high school. So we have this amount in. This is a capital projects issue where funds will be drawn from there. We have to close out this year's books in order to know exactly what the dollars look like as it relates to what we can put into that account. But that being the top priority, we have two other a Tectum issue in Gautier middle section of a roof. that we're looking at that are small projects. Typically, these are projects that I can do out of discretionary fund, but this is something that will all go before the board to request permission for. There's, some things are packed into a package, and I'll explain it to you. The bleachers at both high schools, the hardware is failing. You're dealing with about a 25 or 23-year-old structure. They're in disrepair. There is a repair price on there, but we can actually replace them and modernize them a little bit. So that's one project that we're looking at for this summer to make them more functional. The ceramic at College Park, Arlington Elementary, and Cherokee Elementary School in the foyer front hall area would make that a consistent aesthetic with the rest of our schools that we've done that work in. We don't know that it'll be quite that high to get that done. And then, of course, Calmer, I left off on the roofs, but there's a section of roof at Calmer that we also would like to go ahead and work on. And some of these projects can be worked on during the year, but as I said, based on the board's approval, I'll come back to you with it. If you look at the next frame, I've intentionally left a space there for the Trent Lott House demo. This was an approximate cost of what it would cost to do dirt work to drain that property, put up fencing, gates, and striping. We would use funds from the county that we have in reserve to do the parking area next to the new gym that's being constructed, which should come online in the early spring of next year. And then the third item probably gets you into next year's budget, which is another paving, striping, parking project that we will use county funds that we accumulated to do most of the paving work, but we still have to do some dirt work, some drainage work, and some striping that would not come out of that, and probably some lighting as well for the Performing Arts Center. We are looking to upgrade one of the rooms, and this is not a high dollar upgrade, but to where we have a better dressing area for visitors. That will also be as an extra room for whenever we have our young people come over for different practices from our middle school. And then one priority that we have that's been there for a while now, and we've renovated most of our athletics, but the girls' softball dugouts need some attention. Specifically, Gautier's needs some attention, and we'd like to get that project, and that's something we can do possibly prior to the season starting this year. Of course, it'll be on a funds available basis, and we won't really know what the number is until after we close out for last year. But those are the projects that we have on mind.
I have a question.
Okay.
The upgrade to the visitors dressing area, does that include any type of air conditioning?
Yes, just about specifically, where we're gonna have to put a roof, basically build a roof, and wherever you can pick this up, we're gonna have to build a roof, and then we're gonna have to air condition it. And it will be a fairly primitive design,
Right.
but it will
But it'll
have
get the
greater
job done.
comfort for people who have to be dressed there. And we'll paint it, clean it up, and work on the fixtures there as well.
On the ceramic at College Park in Arlington.
Mhm.
That is one thing that I'd like to see kind of towards the bottom, because, you know, that's just kind of a look good thing, and there's a lot of other things that I think that are more needed than that, but I mean.
And this is not, and just so you know, this isn't a prioritized list.
Yeah.
It's very random in the way
Right.
it's developed. But that would be one of the last, if we have the dollars to do it, would be the last thing that we would put on there. The roofs right now are our priority in the girls' dugouts at the softball fields. That's the main things we're looking at right now.
And the welding at the
Well,
CCTI, is that,
we listed that separately because you've already created a
Right.
budget item and approved it for the welding lab and for the machine shop. And
Right.
we've actually already began, I think, whatever the process for putting in brand new lights and painting that facility as well.
and that's like with our partnership with Ingalls?
That's right.
That's gonna help fund
That's
this.
right. And we'll count those dollars on our main project list, but we'll also count it as a donation on
Okay.
the new project list. But those are two other items that will be covered half by Ingalls.
Do we have any idea what dollar amount we might be getting from Ingalls, or?
Well, they're gonna cover half the cost, so it could be up to $1 million. $500,000? Yeah, it's $500,000. They're gonna get it done a little cheaper than we probably could have gotten it done.
My question was, we started with the wetlands issue in the Gautier area. I thought after we got the shortfall note, we were gonna at least continue getting the permit for the work to be done. But since that takes such a long lead time, I was hoping, I don't have a problem with this list, and I know that it may not be complete after we see other issues, but I did want to at least mention that, that we talked about starting some type, it's going to be a multi-year project, and the draining of the wetlands is kind of as I was told, a several-year issue.
Right, so I can tell you where we are with that.
Okay.
I have Coach Freeman working with Board of Supervisors, and I have Mr. Parker working with the contractor to put in some catch basins, because you got a wetlands water issue on both sides of the field house, the old field house. So we're looking at putting in catch basins, a pad for bleachers, and a sidewalk, so that people who have to walk through there, because it's also used as a pee wee ball field there, that we can elevate that where people are walking through mud, and it is a mud hole on that side of the field house. But also, Coach Freeman is working to get irrigation all the way out behind the baseball field so we can better drain that property before we move into the next phase of anything else out there. We've got to correct those drainage issues first.
The other thing, I was a little surprised to see additional roof damage. Is this something we discovered, or is it such a minor issue that
Over time, you're gonna have deteriorating roofs, and that's what we're dealing with, is fixing deteriorating roofs.
Yeah. So this isn't what, with the high school roofs, we're talking about doing a repair and then coming back in a few years when we can accumulate some money and doing a new roof. Is this kind of the same thing, just a roof repair? These were on schedules earlier,
Yeah,
but
these will be on sections of roofs, and Weber can speak to that specifically.
is this a permanent, like,
No,
20-year roof, or is this just a roof? Yeah.
they're not going, but the storm before that one that blew down the fence at Gautier and Pascagoula.
Yeah.
We had a bad area at Gautier Middle, and a bad area in Common Middle Dining.
Okay.
That it actually put enough water on it fast enough that it made it cave in a little bit. So we've got to do some section work to get it repaired. When you start doing the roof, you can drop $10,000 to $15,000.
Just to get set up.
Yes, because they got to get a big crane and everything.
On the previous list, there was the Jackson Elementary roof. Was that done this summer, or is that?
Jackson Elementary.
You talking about the Tectum there?
I don't know what I'm talking about. I just had a
You're
new.
talking about the front canopy.
Canopy.
Yeah, we talked about redoing the roof. The one that everybody drives underneath, that's when we was talking about doing Commer, Jackson, and get your middle front canopies.
Okay.
We repainted it, but we didn't redo the Tectum.
Which that was
That's
more.
probably what I have down at the canopies and sidewalk.
Yeah, I mean, we painted it, but it's, again, when it gets 20 or 25 years old, it just moisture starts seeping through and it starts getting molded. But we got all that painted this summer during the drainage work.
Well, speaking of Jackson, how is the drainage working there?
I'm gonna say it's doing good, but I'll ask Ms. Damon to see if she confirms that.
It is, it's doing well.
Okay.
It has managed to do just fine.
The 40 extra spaces, where would that take place at?
It's gonna go on, when you turn down Tucker, take a right on 8th. As soon as you pass the entry into the girls softball off 8th Street, we're gonna go down and we're gonna take the Taylor Street, the 8th Street up to the girls batting cage.
Okay.
Over to the first set of lights, where the old backstop used to be in the southeast corner.
Mhm.
We're gonna take that and put those parking spaces where you come in off 8, you go straight down and come off Taylor. that's the only place we can ask for parking for the performing arts. And the band is still being practiced out there.
And that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering without saying, so this is driven by the Performing Arts Center.
Yes. And it'll be good for football games and everything else. Not just performing arts, but baseball, softball.
So you say that you're seeking general approval, but individually, they would come back to the board before we executed?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
One of our work sessions, we discussed some work on building exteriors. Have you thought that through enough to get it on a plan someplace?
Well, we're kind of doing that now with our paintwork that we've been doing. You know, we painted several entrances of schools. That when you start talking about taking the whole front end of schools down, then you're talking about really big dollars for that. And, you know, so we have the painting going on. We have some other decorative things that are being done. You know, you had the new letters that have been added in. We have an issue at Beach Elementary right now where the sidewalk is all broken, leading into the school from the parking lot. We're about to correct that issue out of a small project fund. And, you know, again, it's the same concept, just like fixing the drainage issue over at the field house in Gautier. It all leads to the next project, you know, but it's smaller projects.
Just mention, since you touched on that I'd like us to look seriously at some of the schools. The Gautier Elementary School was completely rebuilt after Katrina, but the vegetation that is there was there before Katrina. And, you know, there are just some schools that just beg for some type of treatment. I just picked Gautier, not because I'm from Gautier, just as an example. But the other thing that kind of concerned me is this. I went driving around to the different schools this summer, visiting and looking in, and I see our staff, I see our principals out there with their grandchildren and their children, putting mulch down, pulling weeds out. To me, I appreciate all the work that they do, but gosh, it seems like we need to provide them some help. You know, if you go to Chevron, you don't see the plant manager weeding, and if you go to Ingram's, you don't see the man. I just don't think it's fair to say, for the board to say we're unhappy or would like to see a facelift, and then to see our principals and teachers with their kids and grandkids out doing the work, because that you know, I don't know, you know, it hurts me to say that we had a discussion about, the board had a discussion, we're unhappy with the way some of the buildings look, and for the principals to feel like that's a sign that we're saying that they need to work harder and come up with other ideas. You know, I'm busy doing that type of work. Just my feelings.
Well, I think one conversation might have been possibly taken a little out of context. I don't know that saying we necessarily weren't happy with the way that they look, that we might want to provide them some help to do some of that stuff. And I know, speak for Gautier, the school that my daughter attended all through elementary, we've been pulling weeds out there during the summer since way early 2000s. That didn't start after the board meeting. And again, I don't at all want to sound combative. My 2 cents, I agree. And we talked about a lot of those things. A lot of these projects we're bringing back up again and wanting to discuss. And we prioritized and we opted for a multi-million-dollar performing arts center. So this is where we're at right now, until we get this behind us, before we can entertain any of these other big jobs. We talked about it at length. We knew it. Our budget is what our budget is. I'm not gonna put anything else, large like that back on the community right now. I'm not gonna support it. I'm not the board. I'm not gonna support it.
Right, and it was my suggestion that we do, within 5-10 years, have some type of plan that we focus on how the outside of our schools look. Because what I'm afraid of is, when we're able to choose where our tax money goes where our kids go to school, we gotta be in a position that people are choosing our schools. And when you ride by, you can say, don't judge a book by a cover. When you ride by some of our schools, I don't think a lot of people would choose. If they walk into school and they see what the schools are like and what our kids are learning and all the equipment they have, at their disposal, that's a different story. But you've got to get them in there first. And I did. I said they look bad, but I spent a whole entire day this summer painting a playground, pulling weeds, brought my kids with me. It was 100 degrees. But our principal was out there. Her family was there. Other parents were there. I think as a whole, just like with Jackson, we had parents want to do, the drainage work. They were willing to volunteer anything they could. I think, you get your PTOs involved, and I do like the allowance that we gave.
Yes, thank y'all.
Because it did. You started seeing things happen, and so other schools, did you see what they did at East Lawn? And, can we do something like this? It's contagious when you take pride in the way that your school looks, and the kids get a kick out of it, I think it just makes a huge difference. It may not be a textbook or a computer, but I think it truly affects the way these kids come in with the attitude that they have to start their day when they're coming into school and they're proud of the way it looks. So, I definitely wouldn't put it above, teacher salaries, no, but I'd love to see it a priority in the grand scheme of things.
No other discussion, we'll call for a vote on this set of capital projects that Mr. Rodolphe just proposed. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. 5-0. And if I can close out something, not closing out the whole works. Okay, we are item D.
There's a letter here from,
You got to look at the tax bill.
letters here from the city of Pascagoula requesting assistance with the crossing guards. Mr. Sessoms has developed a memorandum of understanding. And of course, this is contingent upon final approval of our budget request for this year. But we're asking the board to consider this a way to help the city of Pascagoula.
So moved.
Second.
That's the discussion.
We have a motion on the vote so is there any discussion? Dan, you said yes.
Yeah. I guess my discussion just goes in several different areas. One is, are these city of Pascagoula employees, are these contract people, do they have retirement benefits and things like that that we're assuming responsibility for, or is this just a strict hourly charge that we're assuming? And second of all, if as we assume this responsibility, just to my thought that we're gonna reimburse the city, but, I would like to see the agreement where these employees do what ours do, clock in and clock out at the different locations so that we can validate. We're gonna get into like a dirt truck count, you know. The guy, one person says that guy worked 5 hours and someone else will say, well, I didn't see him out there 5 hours, but I can't say anything about it, type of thing, you know. I think there needs to be some general accountability. But if they're, you know, there's contract security people, and that's my understanding of what's gonna happen, and that we could go, my feeling was when I first heard it, that we could go out for bids for someone to provide that service, and that we would monitor it and pay for it. The way I read this is they're city employees, and the city's gonna just write us a letter and say, you owe us $20,000 this month for, you know, I just would like to see, that we get a reasonable price for the work that's done, and that we have validation, that the hours worked, that the hours reported to us are the hours that were worked.
They've got, looks like they've got a maximum amount here in the letter.
Maybe I didn't read that, I'm sorry, maybe, what does it say?
It's a total, you know, a total of 113,800.
And that number is subject to revision downward because it includes a couple of crossings that will come off their request, so it may be a little bit less than that. So.
Which,
Has this been floated with Brian yet?
Not that one, the other attachment. That second one there. Scroll down there and you'll
So the
see.
city attorney?
Yes.
It has not. This is, as Mr. Goffins mentioned, you've got the mayor's letter requesting
It
this.
says, whereas,
I just said left, and, maybe I didn't go down far.
well, maybe you went down too far. I think you went down too far. Wait, let me see.
I'm sure there's
Page
some
one.
kind of system
It's on
in
page
place.
one.
I mean,
Oh,
it's
sorry.
not like they're gonna say they were there at 2 and school gets out at 3:30. You know what I mean? I'm sure the city probably has some kind of system in place with keeping up.
Yeah,
The time
I would
is probably
expect
a
if
flat
they don't have
rate.
a time card or a
Right.
clock system or attendance, that they've got some way of validating their employee hourly
Right.
hours. And, you know, in any event, I think, and Ms. Green can remind me, I think we have some existing relationships with some reserve officers where we get invoices on a monthly basis and list some of the elements that we have here, the names of employees, their daily rate of pay or hourly rate of pay, and amount charged for such service. So we've got an itemized audit-worthy document that we can work against. I do want to mention this, it's not exactly an MOU, it's more of an interlocal agreement that will require AG approval before we can actually undertake this. But there are AG opinions which allow schools to contribute funds for crossing guard services.
I would, you know, I have no problem with this, but I would at least like to see this publicized that we're doing that. I don't want it just within the boardroom and of course, you know, watching the board, because a lot of people are not gonna watch this meeting. And, you know, we get, cut for doing different things, but we wanna be, recognized for what how we're helping the city out. That's not small potatoes there.
Another issue is that when this was first presented, we were gonna do this for a certain time period, and that was gonna be in the agreement, and this is a 1-year agreement. Do we expect to do this for more than 1 year?
Yeah, so it's actually renewable based on the board, so that we don't obligate any future boards to this agreement. And so at the conclusion of this year, you'll have to resubmit a letter. You'll have to go through this exact process again next year.
But is there, will we be doing this, you know, based on this agreement, another board comes in, does, you know, says, well, we've been doing this for years. My understanding is this is gonna be a 2 or 3 year agreement, and then the city was gonna take it back. Is that the understanding that we have with the city?
No, as it stands in this, it's 1 year,
It's a one-year agreement.
period. 1 year, period.
Our review of the data, based on the millage increase by the city, that they should have this solved within 3 years. But we're not willing to go beyond 1 year because the makeup of the board may change, and we don't want to obligate ourselves beyond that number. And we also have to consider only our budgetary restraints that we have as well. So that's why it's written in the way that it's written.
The other thing is, there was discussion, if we did this with Pascagoula, we would do this with Gautier. Do we have any intent in approaching Gautier?
They haven't asked.
Well, it was just brought up. I understand.
I guess it's kind of like helping a child out. If one child gets in trouble, you help them out. You don't say, well, I gave them money, and so let me give ones that are doing great money, or we're not doing great, but, I'm just saying, and if they ask and show us that they really need help, I don't have a problem with it,
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
Hey,
Somewhere. Way out. For once. Next item would be item C on this list. Discussion of construction change.
JBHM Architects have reviewed the construction change directives we're submitting for board approval. The board member may request that any or all change directives be considered as a separate item. If no such request is made, all construction change directives may be approved by single action by the Board of Trustees. Trent Light Academy and Central Office 2018 Improvements Project, Stewart Construction Incorporated. Pascagoula High School Performing Arts Center Project, Wharton Smith Incorporated. Recommended the Board of Trustees approve the construction change directives as presented.
You have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
second.
Any discussion on this item? Ms. Wilson, you're first.
Yes, I just had some questions for Ryan. I saw that we are not being charged for the first item, which involves some type of layout change for the electrical. The lighting portion regarding, I'm trying to find it.
Which one is it?
It's your own performing arts center.
Yeah, the Performing Arts Center. Let me find it, I had it pulled up. Yeah, the stage edge lighting and then the seating lighting. Did we not have seating lighting at all in the original plan?
We do not.
Okay. I'm just concerned about the amount of our contingency budget because we're just getting into this project and that's taken a huge chunk. Where's the funding gonna come from once that budget is depleted?
Hopefully we don't deplete it,
Right,
but,
at this rate,
yeah,
I mean, it's almost, you're taking 27,000 from it from this first.
Sure.
Well, not first, I think it's fourth.
so,
Second. And I'm just really concerned that we're just now digging into this.
yeah.
And what is I understand it's nice to have auditorium light seating.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I would think it would be something that would be necessary, like, I'm just confused why it wasn't in the original.
Yeah, it's really a betterment to the project, so if that's not in there, then what you would need to do to have some aisle lighting is essentially leave some of the edge ceiling lights on,
Right,
which could be disruptive to certain types of performances. And so
Right.
in working through the chairs, that's the middle we realized, well, hey, we don't, chairs can come with it, but we don't have them hooked up to power. So that's essentially where the money is hooking up all of these
to
to
the
power.
floor
Yeah,
boxes.
because you have to run power to each end of the row. It's not something that has to be done, but it's
Right,
essentially a betterment to the project. So,
How many design reviews did we have on this project?
several.
Let's say 8 or 10.
So yeah, I echo that, right? All sides, really, I understand the need. I also understand that it's 22.8, 23% of our remaining contingency for the project. Again, don't want to keep bringing it back up or be the ugly guy. I'm just saying, if we find true contingency down the road in this project, it will sit undeveloped until I can find funds from somewhere else to finish it, if I've got any say in it. So let's look and let's make sure what we're calling contingency truly is that. Because I'm not gonna be able to support any other budgeting for the project once it's gone, so. That's me.
I'll just mention to the board, there are several other cash allowances you're supposed to further, go to yours, like door hardware, Mississippi Power being one. We're under budget on quite a few of those items.
Right.
And so if those monies go unspent, that's just
they'll be
additional.
applied to the contingency.
Yeah, that's buffering. That's y'all's money. If it doesn't get used at the end of the day, you get it all back.
Right.
That's, we can
I'm
write a
just scared we
report.
run out and
Yeah.
then we really need something detrimental to
That's
the
right.
building,
Yeah.
that it's not gonna open without it,
Yeah,
and we're sitting at a zero
yeah,
balance.
I agree. That's certainly something.
I mean, I think it's great to have lighting there. I mean, if you're gonna do it right from the beginning, because that's something that would cost way more to replace later, but I'm just, I would think something like that would have been in the initial design phase.
Sure.
So, talk to me about the concrete work and the additional structural support that's now required.
There were some things that just were not in the drawings that needed to be in there. So they were never paid for on bid day, and now they're needing to be done. So we found, I forget, I think one of them was related to the stairs. Some steel need to be upsized there, and there's a rental, sort of at the backstage area that, I think the structural engineer just made a design here, and just didn't have enough scope in the project. So that was fortunately caught before it became a larger issue, but certainly there's more money there.
That's about the size of the performing arts center, and really it's just a value for Trent Lott, right? So we need to say everything over again.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said, I guess it's my concerns are a ditto for Trent Lott. I said, so I won't put y'all through repeating that spiel again, but I feel the same way about the contingency fund balance there and, like acoustic panels, again, nice, personal opinion, not contingency. But, at any rate, I just ask that we be vigilant with that.
Any other discussion on this construction change notice? Not ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Carried 5-0. Okay, that puts us down to the information items. Vandalism reports tell us no problems. Discipline report. Any comments on our discipline report? It's just for the start of school, then through the end of August. I want people to know that I really appreciate the effort that went into getting this board packet put together. Given that you took off 3 days and had to scramble, because, you know, I know Miss Green was up to her eyeballs and trying to get books to clean up.
I got a lot of help, we got help.
It was, I got a note that says we're working hard, but it may be late. And I said, yeah, well, it's not gonna be on Wednesday noon after you got back to work, or Thursday noon after you got back to work on Thursday morning, so. But I do appreciate the effort that went into getting this done, getting these things pulled together.
And in addition to that, I'd like to thank the staff, because while the appearance is that everyone was off, everyone was going in, securing offices, records, for at least a day of their own time, and then when the delay was extended because of the potential, they also went back in and removed all the protection and the wrapping, plastic wrap around computers and records, and got the facilities back
Ready to go to work.
ready to go to work, so when the kids came the next day. So although the appearance is that everybody was off, there was an awful lot of work, an awful lot of our employees donating their time and just securing the properties. And I just want to thank everyone for that effort also.
Can I make a comment
Yes.
about future processes for storms? We actually were going to have school. Y'all are aware of that. I called all of you. It was a simple mathematics problem, in my opinion, on why we should have had school the first day. At the last minute, there was some speeding up of the storm that was alleged, actually slowed down because it pushed it to 10 rather than 7. But guys, if we're 8 hours from landfall on a Cat 1, then I'm probably going to ask for y'all to trust me in doing the math, because we didn't really have a flood issue coming. We were a good 8 hours away from any potential landfall at all, and then we ended up really getting nothing. And our decision making was driven, I think, by a little bit less experienced people in dealing with storms. And so in the future, I prefer that we do a math problem on this to determine if we really need to close school down or not. Because it was, I felt really silly on the first day that we missed, that I was talked out of it. And it wasn't the board, it was, the other superintendents receiving pressure, and then me trying to remain consistent there. But y'all know in the past, I haven't been consistent sometimes, and it's worked out. And I just felt like that was a little bit of an overreach to shut down. And I understand we want to be safe and sorry and all those things, but I was having a hard time doing the mathematics in my head of how this was going to be an issue for us whenever I made that call back to y'all to tell you that we're going to close school. So I may be talking to you longer next time and giving you my rationale for why we shouldn't close school.
Probably you'll make your decision based on the severity of the storm. If it's a category 3 or 4 like Florence going in, we want more than 8 hours.
Right, and well, and the other part of that is we've reached a point now since Hurricane Katrina where if we have a bad thunderstorm, people don't want us to go to school. And here's the fact that everyone needs to think about, and Melinda articulated this very well. The children who come to this school district, there's a large number of them who depend on our school district for some form of sustenance and safety, and they have an adult in the same room as them. And whenever we have to cancel school, we put a lot of people in some very dire circumstances. So again, that's one of the reasons that we'd like to keep school open. And that's all I have.
Certainly appreciate your comments, because we did get some comments. Why did you close school? Well,
Well, and
you can be right, or you can be wrong. And the potential for being wrong is really risky. So
it is.
it is what it is. You're gonna take a hit one way or the other. Just go with what you think you're doing.
I had some of those calls too, but I took every venue at my disposal to tell the public if they had gripes about a makeup day, don't bring them my direction. Because 100 times out of 100, if we feel like we're jeopardizing the safety of our staff members, our students, people think that school ends when the bell rings, and that's unfortunately not the case. We have bus routes that have to get run. We have facilities that have to be cleaned up and taken care of. We have people in central office covering our equipment. We have athletic directors going around to our facilities to make sure that people have wind secured and put things up, and for us to knowingly put them in a position to face those conditions on the way home from a job we told them we had to be at, I'm not okay with that. Unfortunately, as small as this storm was, there was a fatality of a child in Florida in a circumstance that it was because of the condition, not necessarily the severity of the storm, just a Swiss cheese model, if you will, where things just lined up. And anytime we can avoid stacking that Swiss cheese up, I'm all in favor of avoiding it.
Okay, on to the construction.
I've lost connection.
I don't know what I'm gonna get them dots on. Any comments on the construction update?
I think we've near about covered the construction update.
Just about?
I have that. I didn't have that
You have any good news to tell us?
information.
Things going fairly well.
Training Arts on schedule and Performing Arts Center still about 14 days behind.
But they're working Saturdays.
Okay.
They have 14 weeks of Saturdays to work.
They do.
Still do.
Yeah, they got like 50 something.
Okay.
We're over a year to go on that one, so.
I see them piling dirt up in there, so.
It's starting to look like a building in front.
Yeah.
So,
I understand.
there's a long way to go.
What happened to you?
I've lost connection to the server, to the network.
That's not good.
There was something written in red about a final decision needs to be made. Is that something that was directed to the board, or is that, oh, okay.
Just in general, I'm not sure who the final decision maker is on that, but just in general.
Yeah, that's above mine and Ryan's pay grade right there.
Are we gonna,
We're talking about the Pascagoula Performing Arts Center.
the name,
Basically, it comes down, I think it should be a board decision on it. Something that I would recommend the board doesn't name it, possibly the Pascagoula High School Performing Arts Center, the Pascagoula-Gautier School District Performing Arts Center, but it is located on Pascagoula High School's campus. That'll be the primary right of refusal from that school. And then everybody else lines up after that. So just come down with the recommendation for what the name is today.
But you're not looking for it today.
It needs to happen pretty quick.
It's going up on a little somewhere.
It'll be embedded within the structure.
So I see both sides. I'm more of a fan of Pascagoula Performing Arts Center than maybe necessarily Pascagoula High School, just understanding they have first right of refusal, but it's for the children of Pascagoula predominantly, right? That's my 2 cents. I don't think we need to stamp PGSD on it. It is over here in Pascagoula. We didn't come over and stamp PGSD when we built SRA. So I'm fine with one of those. On a personal level, I guess I more prefer Pascagoula than Pascagoula High School.
And I prefer Pascagoula High School, so.
Yeah.
You guys didn't do me, you want to talk about the rest of it.
Yeah, I just, just Performing Arts Center, period. And you have designated it Pascagoula, Pascagoula-Gautier, Pascagoula High School. Just Performing Arts Center. When you go to a lot of campuses now, they'll have a sign like the, CCTI, they'll just have that sign up there. They wouldn't say Pascagoula or whatever, or Tupelo or whatever. They'll just post what the building is on it, like at the college over there. That's what they do. Just put what it is, and don't worry about the name,
One name wiped out, one you in the pot.
Yeah. But I don't really care.
You've got to care. The only 2 guys that care are the 2 people from Gautier.
I think both names sound okay. I don't have a problem with either one.
Well, the history of it is, quite frankly, when the city refused to give us $4 million, when we went to court and got the judgment that said it was owed to us, when we received word that Pascagoula couldn't pay it, their unwillingness, city council's unwillingness to even, when we came up with the option, pay for the attorney fees to get, we've assumed the liability now for 3 years. We want to be, it seems like we want to be nice to, we fought for it, we paid for it, we're paying for it again. It's a school, it's a school performing arts center. It is not a city performing arts center, and somehow or other, it needs to be designated as a school performing arts center, is my opinion. And then I'll be quiet from now. Now you know my opinion.
Yeah, I get out of this, because I'm gonna let the natives speak.
Brad, gives you the break-in vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
I understand what Dan's saying, that makes sense, really, In other words, it designates it as belonging to the school, not the community. Well, it does belong to the community, but the city.
It sits on school property, which
Yeah.
is.
Well, I know.
Well, there are certain cities that help pay, come up with the funding for it. And part of the discussion was, if we moved it to a location that they designated, and if we bought that property, they would try to come up with some money to help us pay for it. And, it's just been, more, it's a school, it's a school performing arts center, and the whole community, the whole county, the whole city is free to use it after we establish the priority, the school.
I would just assume it'd be a performing arts center, no designation.
I agree, and I honestly would like to see maybe in the future, if someone comes up with like a name or something that they feel it should be dedicated to, maybe somebody that's made some kind of contribution in their lifetime to performing arts in our district. That would be a great honor to have something like that named after someone who's, vested in the district for so long, or when do we have to have a name to you? I mean, can we table it for the next meeting? Or do you need it before then?
Like next couple of weeks, maybe?
Then that would be a special meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not on the agenda to name it.
Are we gonna be?
All Mr. Always needs a consensus, that's all, he doesn't,
Well, we don't have to have a decision tonight, but I prefer not to wait till the next month, because I don't want to hold anything up, but we don't have to know tonight. I'm just worried about a whole month from now,
Right, and I'm just concerned if it's,
but we need to
if
get
he
it
wants it to
right
be a
too.
board decision, it needs to be a board
Right.
meeting, an
That's fair.
open meeting,
That's fair.
if it's gonna be a board decision.
I'm making way around it. We'll try.
It keeps raining, we can't.
That's right.
Will we get another storm?
So you guys have the general idea then, they haven't given an answer, but some.
And what we've done is that part of the building, we just put that on hold. And so the rest of what we call
Still
architectural precast is being produced.
Okay,
I've just told them to hold that until I tell them.
okay,
And so I think we'll be okay.
Right.
And I put it in the contractor's order, if we're not okay, then tell me and we'll communicate that back and we can figure out from there. So,
Sonny, are you up, mine's down?
No, mine's down too, that's what I say, he's checking, he's at board ops.
Okay. So I'm just gonna-
okay, any other comments on the construction update? No? On.
Financials would be next, Mr. Chairman.
Financials, need.
But nobody can see it
There's a copy.
unless we can go get hard copies. Yeah, y'all take my word for it, I looked at them, we do have money.
Yeah,
We do have money?
Yes.
while we're waiting, I'll just make a comment, to Ms. Green, of course, this was not in the financials, but it is financial, part of the, package there. On the document claims, I like the way that you did that, and it's easier, much easier to read than the old way was. I really like it.
Any other comments on our financial reports? You had a chance to read them before.
Yeah, I read the before guy.
You didn't write any note on your hand, so they got to talk about this.
No, I was happy with what I saw.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say we can go on then. Next item is comments on section D of our policies, where we've had,
on the graduation requirement.
no, this is our own review of policies.
Yeah.
Keeping with the name of
I didn't see.
Reading section D. Anybody bring comments that we can,
I didn't see anything is on finance.
I'd like to, I don't know if it belongs in D or if it would be board member, I'd like to explore, creating a policy that we have a set limit on board member travel reimbursement for like our professional development, consistent with, say, we required 6 hours a year for, to maintain, our board membership. Try to figure out, I don't know if that's something you could look up, like, we were all fortunate that we went to Better Lodge for, nobody had to stay in a hotel or any of that to get our 6 hours for the year. I know some other school boards have done things like just to put some, I don't think anybody abuses it, but I'd like to see some controls in place that it's not abused.
Well, I disagree. I think that if a board member decides that he or she wants to go to the National School Board, I as a board member for several years, there are some programs that, in order to gain any information about, you need to go to the National School Board Convention. I don't think that should be, I don't think a board member who feels that is important should be told he can't do it.
Well, I don't think you're being told you can't do it, but I don't think the district should be responsible for my professional development beyond what's required by law. And I'm just saying, like, set a limit, and then you could go through and say, okay, if this is above the limit, get board approval. It's not denying your option to do it, but I just think we have no controls there, and it's just, I just.
We
feel
have
better
been
with some type of
fortunate,
control.
Dan.
That's what I'm saying, no one abuses it, but I remember Jefferson Parish in Louisiana had an issue, and it's easy to accumulate hundreds of thousands of dollars in travel reimbursement. So they had one board member that had $35,000 worth of travel in 1 year. That's a lot of money. And anything beyond what you're required to have by law, I think is extra. And if I want to go get myself some kind of certification for having 20 hours in a year, I think that's my responsibility,
Well, I think that,
not a district
I think
responsibility.
that maybe if we would put a limit, it'd be limited to like 12 hours, because there's a lot of legislative updates.
Right, and there's a lot of
that,
things, yeah.
That legislative updates.
Like
come
subject
after you.
area
Right.
things. Yeah, I agree. I just want to see some kind of reasonable limit,
I support
controls.
You need a number of hours.
Right,
Out-of-state travel,
it.
something
I
like that,
think
because
we're
most of
going,
the in-state travel, it's,
right. And it's good to know your laws in your state. That's to me the utmost important, is to make sure you're following your own guidelines. I agree, you can learn a lot of stuff at national conferences. I've been to them for other areas, but I don't think anybody should pay for that.
Well, I disagree. I firmly, this thing, I went for several years to the national because of technology. You can't keep up with technology by going to the Mississippi School Board Association, continuing ed, or to the
Our district does have
legislative.
technology for teachers, don't they?
In order to keep up with technology, you've got to. But it's a national issue that Mississippi, most districts in Mississippi don't have the money, and therefore why provide training for technology? We still have a technology gap. But it's more in software and other things. If the board doesn't want to keep up with national issues, it's difficult for the staff to. I don't think we should all go off on junkets, or I even agree that I don't think that we want to be there are certain school boards that go to every single training that's available. They end up with 50 hours of training, and it's all reimbursed. But I just think that if it's abused, I think we can easily stop it. But I don't think we should set the limit, is my feeling. That you can't do this without special board approval. Anyway.
I don't mind seeing a dollar amount set on
Well, we don't have a policy in front of us.
it. Right.
When you heard the discussion,
There is no policy.
I know there was something about the hours, I remember whenever you.
It's just stating the requirements that you're required 6 hours.
So we'll need to look into
is what's the average cost of getting your 6 hours a year?
I don't wanna limit it to 6 hours.
Well, I'm just saying, find that out, and then you can add some leeway. I just don't wanna see it being abused. I'd love to go to Denver, and learn more about school board stuff, and I could, but I don't expect a taxpayer to have to foot the bill for it. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm getting what's required by the state to keep this position and keep making decisions, I mean, I just think under fiscal management, I mean, that would be a huge part of it. And travel expenses can get outrageous. And not that it's, being misused, but to a certain extent, you become responsible. If you want your own personal, professional development, then you pay for it beyond what is required by the state. I just think it's,
Agreed.
Well, I don't think you should throw out a number of 35,000 and base your argument on that. To go to Denver.
well, no, you were
Plus
saying you don't think people
$500 a
abuse it.
ticket,
I'm just
plus
saying they
$200
do. It's
a
in the
night.
news.
Plus, you're giving up your whole weekend because the program is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And, it's not, there's a connotation that I'm hearing that it's wasting taxpayers' money. And that's
I'm
my
just saying at times
only
we're
argument,
looking at
it's
our
not
budget.
wasting taxpayers'
It's not a
money.
waste, but it's not a necessity. It's not a requirement.
How much coding is going on in schools nowadays in Mississippi?
How much are we teaching that? Our teachers get tech development all summer. We put on a camp because we're probably the most technologically advanced district in the state. Our teachers are getting that. I'm not saying teachers don't need to go to conferences. I'm saying as a board member, I don't feel it's necessary for me to, go way above and beyond what's required and expect someone else to pay for it.
And there are a lot moving that way. There's several states that have actual law in place now around schools teaching coding classes. And a lot of people are shocked to discover the true pack leader in technology as far as coding is concerned is Arkansas. And they have been through their School of Technology, Math, and Science for the last several years. Governor's partnered with them there. There's a lot we learn from a group like that. And I learned that at Southeast in Biloxi this year.
Well, we can't set policy here tonight, but Mr. Knowledge, we may need to look at it, see if we need to develop a policy that says what we want, how we want to treat board member professional development.
I think to the extent of Section D, where we started,
I don't think we found any.
is overwhelmingly driven by the Constitution and its regulations. I don't think we have any gaps in there now anyway, none that I could see. And if you had a difference of opinion with part of it, you would probably find yourself legally bound in this deal with it.
Stuck.
Yeah. So, I found nothing.
Mr. Lemon, have you added an item from a board member?
No.
That was a mistake.
It was a
an error.
mistake. Yep.
It was returned to open session. It was just put in the wrong place.
Oh,
How I got there, because it was two instances per.
okay.
We fixed it before we started.
At that point then, we need a motion to go and close the meeting to determine if an executive session is required. We have two items in potential, listed as potential executive session items, and I don't see that any of news have occurred tonight. Two requests for student assignments that, because they're student items, need to be discussed in closed session.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. 5-0, but I don't know where my.
My whole computer.
Oh, we're all stopped, we're all stopped right now, right?
Yep.